Hello and welcome to the Pinkbike podcast. My name is Henry and this week I'm joined by Dario and Kaz to basically talk a load of shit, answer some of your questions, go through some show and tells, maybe even touch upon some decent editorial comment at some point, although I wouldn't get your hopes up. Starting on a strong note, Kaz, this week in a place called Florida, not to be confused with the rapper Flo Rida, same spelling, there's been Swampfest. For all the talk of grassroots fun mountain, I think Swampfest is kind of what a lot of mountain bikers think mountain biking is, but it's really not.
Swampfest is what people think Crankworx is, and it's not. It's much fucking cooler. Oh my god.
Yeah. Swampfest is basically just BMX carnage in a swamp, essentially, in Florida. The craziest looking thing ever. Part of me wants to go to spectate and see it, and also part of me doesn't want to go because I think I might get tetanus just by watching. It's the gnarliest thing. It looks scary and awesome, and I don't think mountain biking could even come close to replicating it. Like, we would mess it up somehow. It's way cooler than anything mountain biking does, but
it's insane. So they're in a humid environment. There's a bit of water and mud, but no Gore-Tex. Dario, how are they surviving?
How do they do it with jean shorts, no shirts, and soggy shoes? Yeah, they are harder than us. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And this is a strong defense for my hatred of Gore-Tex. You don't need it. If Swampfest doesn't need a raincoat, you don't need a raincoat.
Well, they also are drunk.
They're drunk and it's Florida, but still,
But I think Gore-Tex is like, it's like wine. It's like knowing what year of Gore-Tex you had affects what it is. If you have like a 2017 Gore-Tex, it's pretty good.
An excellent vintage. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a little shake dry.
But people, if you went to Swampfest and said those words, someone would punch you.
And deservedly so. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's why it's scary. They're so much cooler than us.
Levy said it all the time, and it's so true. He's like, we need to just accept that we're just dorks. We're not cool. And like, I think there's this thing where like, imagine saying to like a BMXer, that sort of thing, and being like, putting on your matching race kit and your little pajamas and your matching helmet and tinted goggles, and you'd be like, I love mountain biking, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I think we kind of get lost in the sauce a bit.
Yeah, we take ourselves too seriously. So that's why this event is so awesome to watch, or spectate from the other side of the internet. But yeah, it's just people doing crazy things, and the level, like the riding level there is super high. Like, there's guys that look like they're homeless, but then they're just doing double tail whips and like cork sevens and stuff.
Well, they might be both. To be fair,
they could be both.
They're not mutually exclusive.
They could be both. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of cool. You're having like, we get it in mountain biking where pros hang out with your average Joes basically, but this is just like a full mixing of just a huge mix of very talented BMX riders just jumping over fire, and it's crazy.
And skateboarding too. Like the skate scene at Swampfest is increasing every year. And
Andy Anderson was down there. Which I like. He might be one of my favorite skateboarders, but it looks crazy. But so yeah, that's happening. So if you haven't watched anything this week on the internet, just set aside half an hour and watch some Swampfest content.
Watch that, and then watch the Max Miller edit that we had as a must-watch a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
because that is also like Rampage-sized features on a BMX bike, and it's so cool. Yeah. It's so gnarly.
I just don't understand. I know it sounds really stupid, but watching his video, he just didn't seem to like get hurt like I get hurt. He just
I know. He's like slamming into concrete again and again. And if I like wipe out on a soft trail, I feel like I like break my wrist.
I know.
I don't get it.
He is a little shorter. He's on the shorter side, so maybe the lower center of gravity is helping him. But that guy can tuck and roll like nobody. Like any of those slams, I'd be out for months. I'd be like, sorry, I have to not do anything for a long time.
The first 3.5 minutes of that video are him hitting concrete.
It's like brutal.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad he wears a helmet. It just made me like, I was like, not all these people should wear helmets, like just because of safety. But like when he was wearing one, I was like, this guy definitely. I'm glad he's wearing one, because if he wasn't, he might not be around if he didn't wear a helmet. Like it's
truly.
There was It's funny speaking about Gore-Tex. I was skiing last week, and basically everyone was him. I thought this was genuinely funny. So we got there really early, queuing up for like 2 hours. Basically, skiing is mainly queuing. This is what I've realized.
Right,
but in this queue, it was a long queue at Whistler, and waiting for the gondola to open to get up the mountain. And I reckon there's literally probably like $200,000 or $300,000 worth of Gore-Tex, like waterproof equipment, and we all had bin bags on because we couldn't keep dry because it was raining.
Whoa!
And I'm just there,
That's
like,
so
what?
Sad.
This is so nuts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought it was such a comical thing. Like all these, you know, extremely expensive ski jackets, like, and that basically doesn't work. The people
Well,
that
skiing
work are
doesn't
the
usually
people
happen
with
when
Helly
it
Hansen
rains. Like, to be fair, they're designed more
But
for
why
snow.
optimize for powdered snow? I mean, that like you could wear a
Well,
hoodie.
no, I mean, I bet it was raining, Henry, right? Like, was it?
Yeah, it was raining.
Rain.
Yeah. Like proper, like, not to defend big Gore-Tex, but like a good ski jacket will work in the right conditions. Like if it's raining, it might soak through eventually because they haven't figured that technology out. But
wow, didn't realize you were such a big shill for Gore-Tex. Kaz.
I know, yeah.
Jesus.
You guys we can go ski sometime. You guys can all wear your garbage bags and we'll see how it works for a whole day.
Kaz,
I'm gonna wear.
I
have
ski now
this
because I fucking shred. I'm finally good enough to ski with the Kaz dog.
Perfect.
On groomers.
I have an insulated Carhartt bodysuit that I went skiing in one day, and it over the course of the day soaked up so much water. I think it was like 75 pounds by the end of the day, but I was warm. So
there was no snow left. Dario just
I had just like all of it. Yeah.
So let's talk about some show and tells. Dario, I believe last time we did a show and tell, it was actually
I fucking knocked it out of the park. This week is not quite as extreme,
expectations, but
yeah, it's not a superlative thing like lightest or whatever, but it is a new Fox fork, the 34 SL. This is the new XC fork from Fox. Historically, the 34 was like a trail all-rounder sort of smaller travel fork, and then the 34 Stepcast was their cross-country variant, and then the 32 was their like super pinner XC fork, and now it's just 34 SL. That's kind of the catch-all for 110 mil to 130 mil travel fork for cross-country or light trail bike purposes. It's basically the same weight as the outgoing Stepcast, which is impressive considering it has better bushing overlap and a full-sized air spring, and it can fit real dampers. So it's a pretty cool development and smart of them, I think, to like consolidate their lineup a little bit because they were a bit busy in that department prior. So I have a good amount of riding on a 120 version of the fork with a Grip X damper, which is that like trail damper that's so. But on an XC bike, it feels pretty good. Don't have enough time to talk about it at great length, though.
And so, just to touch on that Grip X damper, do you think that it's a well-sorted damper that was maybe not at home on a 160 mil travel aggressive trail bike fork? And then it's just, but actually in its place, it works?
I think it handles shorter travel numbers better. I think that is often, it's easier to deal with less movement, you know, like a damper's job is easier when there's less travel to deal with. And so I think in this case, it suits the shorter travel platform a bit better.
How's the noise? Is it quiet or sorry?
It depends on the damper. So the SL damper is like the sweep single adjust, and that's got like a pretty loud rebound to it. Mm-hmm. But the X is the one I have is quiet. I think that they've made some rolling changes to that to quiet it up a bit. It's not silent, but it's like I would call it acceptable.
Nice.
I like the shoop and gurgle. I like it.
I don't the shoop and gurgle.
Because when you get on one of those, like a quiet fork, if you have a bike that's fully quiet, like shock and fork, it's pretty nice.
It is cool.
It makes it sound like a rally car, though, going over like...
The sound of cavitation.
The like slurpy sound of like an EXT shock is okay because it's like, it sounds like turbulence and goop. But I feel like when it's that whistly light XC fork sound, it kind of unsettles me a little bit. I don't know how to...
I just want them all
quiet. If my bike is perfectly quiet, except for shoop de boop in from the suspension, that is A-okay with me. I love it. So is the 34 still, as we know it, staying in the range?
I actually don't know the separation on that. So currently it's just 34 SL. I think the outgoing trail version that goes up to like 140 and stuff exists still. This isn't deleting that, but essentially what they're launching this week is an XC fork and also a remote system. So Fox has their lightweight dropper post. Obviously they make shocks and forks, and they've also made like a 2-lever remote that allows you to lock out fork or shock and use your dropper post. So it's kind of a simplified lockout system as well. So this is just very much an XC focused launch in that sense.
That Transfer SL is crazy light, and interesting enough, it's actually got a mechanical spring in there. Hey,
right.
Do you know why they don't make that in like a 200? Because if it's lighter and
I don't know. I mean, I think historically when brands have made spring actuated long travel posts, they have some durability issues when it comes to like reaching full height. Like I remember E13 made one that went up to like 180, I think. And you'd occasionally have to like pull the spring out of the post and give it a stretch.
But that one also it's not infinite adjustment. It's only up or down.
Correct.
So it'd be kind of weird, I feel like, on a long travel bike if you had to always just go from full extended to full compressed.
Yeah. The E13 one had detents along the way. I think it was like every 10 mil or something like that. But I'd almost be okay with it being like a bottom, middle, top.
No,
the Fox DOS.
I wouldn't. The new, I hadn't had a chance to use the new Fox wireless dropper post, which is crazy expensive and silly. But now I have a fancy bike that has it on it. It's actually really, really good. Like way better than any wireless dropper that I've used. Like I don't think dropper posts need batteries, but the way that they've figured that thing out and like the speed that it, with the thumb lever, you can really like micro adjust it to a level that isn't possible in anything else, which is pretty cool.
I definitely tried to highlight that when they launched that a while back, but it's kind of hard to fathom how different it feels until you use it. Whether it's worth the whatever it is.
Yeah, the price
$1,000.
is crazy, and like I said, I don't need to defend batteries and weird looking things, but that is the most impressive wireless dropper that I've used so far.
Yeah.
And how long can to go into the wireless? So the wireless dropper, can that go, is it 200 or can it go longer?
200.
So far it's just 200. Yeah.
200.
Yeah, I wish they had a 240 or something. Like the next little bit up would be sweet. But
which I know we always talk about, but it sounds so but it actually really.
I know people think we're being silly, but it's like even just a 210. Like I had a cable actuated one before, and then switching to like a 200, you're like the extra 10 mils was kind of nice, but you get used to it obviously. But like if you,
I think complaining about like travel, like cause I would complain about like, and I would when I was reviewing bikes, that a bike came with an unrideable 180 mil dropper, and it's a bit like if you explained to someone 50 years ago how good economy plane tickets were to go across the Atlantic Ocean, they'd be like, wow, what a huge amount of comfort. But now we're like, the legroom, like it's obviously stupid. Like we are wrong, but also it's also
better
really
than
nice
getting than dying of syphilis on a 2-month boat journey across the Atlantic.
Was that the big cause of death? Syphilis?
I don't know. I would assume it spread on
you
ships.
Get quite bored on the deck.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Go.
Kaz, what's your show and tell? I heard a rumor it was socks. Is it the socks?
I did get some fancy socks for a checkout article, but no, we're not going to talk about socks. But even mine isn't super exciting, but you can finally get some of the Continental, formerly downhill tires in a super soft compound in an enduro casing. So the tires that launched was that 2 years ago, I think, when Conti made a splash, revamped their lineup, and the Argotol and the Cryptotol. Now you can get the Cryptotol front and the Argotol in a super soft casing, super soft compound enduro casing. So that's what a lot of people have been asking for. But unfortunately, there's no Cryptotol rear at the moment, which that's a tire that works good in the front. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of 27.5 availability. So it's kind of like now you can get your enduro casing super soft front tire, but that's it.
Yeah. Which might not be bad. I mean, I think a lot of way people spec bikes is having a slightly thicker casing on the rear anyway, so you can still have a Cryptotol rear, I guess. And the cool thing about the Contis, and I don't know what your guys' experience is of them, but they do seem to last a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been really good luck. Even when they wear down to like where you might normally think about replacing one, they still kind of have support and they don't just flake off and peel off. So yeah, it'd be interesting. It's almost overshadowed by the radial story from Schwalbe this year. That tire is the one where you're kind of like riding like, oh, how come all tires aren't like this? But that Argotol is a great tire in the wet and kind of more muddy conditions. I like that tire, and having a little bit lighter front version of that in a super soft compound is cool. So I'm glad to see them. I think they're actually, maybe it's a month or two ago, one of the YTs that somebody reviewed had them on it already. Like somehow YT got the first run of the super softs, but they exist because I have one in my garage now. So
yeah. They were also like briefly available on some of the a la carte builds. Like when I was building up the propane, it seemed like they were available there, and then that disappeared. So maybe their supply chain bottleneck somewhere. But
yeah, so that's the thing.
I think
so
that both Continental and Schwalbe, the way they did their like hard reset has been really like from a branding perspective. Like, if you wanted to like look at it, it's actually so. Continental weren't considered great. You know, they had really good XC and like a strong like brand image, but that hard relaunch where they did everything in one go was really impressive. And I think similarly with Schwalbe in the radial, like they like the branding was tweaked. Yep. It wasn't rushed. It was like, and I think,
and the tires
really
are good.
impressive.
You know, that's what's like, hey, this is a good tire. You can recommend it to people. And you know, I will say with the Contis, they still come with like some of them have like a little plastic coating initially, or like a waxy coating at first. So if you get them on your first ride, maybe just like do some skids and don't go out on the slipperiest, wettest day without ever having any miles on them at all, because they do have kind of a more waxy coating. It takes like a ride to come off, and after that, they're great. But it is your first ride might not be as amazing as you think, but once they're broken in, they're great.
Well, I think that's what the thing was with the original equipment, white-walled Contis in the firm, like the middle casing, middle compound, was that it never really seemed to lose that sheen.
No, they were just full of wax. Like,
yeah, it was like, you know, like the recycling bin, that hard plastic that we
it's made of that.
Like they were recycled bin. They were very hard plastic. Like we constituted Tupperware some of the time.
Yeah,
I have one of the Xylitals, which is like the low tread pattern that was released when they came out with the tires 2.5 years ago in the endurance rubber, and it looks the same as it did when I got it 2.5 years ago. It only comes out in the summer, but
I think they did something though where they went like softer compound at the base of the knob, then harder compound on top, right? Which is why they get something that lasts so longer. But and I've heard that other brands are sort of experimenting with that as well.
I don't remember how that shook out. There was like talk of that being the case, but I think the super soft is the same rubber through the knob.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I think it's the harder ones that have like a case or like a cap of softer rubber or something. But I don't quote me on that.
Yeah. I remember Catho winning that Xylitol in Fort William on the rear and loving it.
Yeah, it makes sense for like
fast.
The right course. I could see it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that was pretty good, Kaz. I mean, you can talk about the socks if you like.
Next week, I have more exciting things. We're getting into the more exciting things. There's just things I can't talk about yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Secrets.
But, I'll just fill the listener in. These socks have dimples in, which apparently are great for comfort.
Yeah.
I mean,
for comfort. I seem like you're excited about it more than me. I can show.
I'm kind of into it.
Yeah. You can do a sock show and tell. The brand's called
Why
Courier.
not, Kaz?
And look at this. They got like little dimples, and they're designed. They got little like pull tab on the back.
Like
they're
like
for biking and running.
Is it an arrow thing? Like golf ball
it's just a amplified sensitivity for the ultimate feel and control. You know,
for her pleasure.
Yeah.
When do you think aero is going to come into mountain biking? Because it will at some point.
I think it already has. Like we have the World Cup peeps wearing skin suits and shit.
But not that level. Like if you look at like gravel, like they're releasing gravel tires now that are aero optimized. And like, I mean, in the XC world, I think it could a little bit, but to reach the speeds that you need for it to become relevant, there aren't a ton of courses where it happens for at least your cross country. But
whoever breaks the seal on aero and mountain biking has to go to Swampfest that year.
Yeah, that's their punishment.
Yeah. They have to They have to give a presentation on the value of aero and mountain biking at Swampfest. How about that?
It is a thing, and there's more on handlebar and stuff. Like there's more aero sensors available now, so I'm positive people are experimenting with it, because why wouldn't you? Like,
right.
I don't know. It feels like, I think the interesting thing about road cycling in the aero is obviously it's really important, but it also gets diminishing returns when you cycle in a group, which is what you tend to do. And lots of people buy aero road bikes that aren't doing 50k solo breakaways, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And the average
this idea
yes,
this idea of like it being in a race thing, I think is something the road marketing has basically built an industry on, is avoiding the idea that aero needs to be raced.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the same with mountain biking. Like I think there'll become a point where, and I don't look forward to it, to be honest with you. I think it's, if you actually look at how fast we descend a lot of mountain biking trails, it's basically jogging pace, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the best trails. So the ones that you can like force you to go like that are the ones I like. So I'm not too concerned about aero, but you know, on some of those smoother cross, even like with the Cape Epic that's happening this week, like there's definitely aero gains to be had, but it's just not really my cup of tea. But there are people that love to nerd out about aero stuff. So it's a thing and it's happening, but yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, we look forward to the show and tell where you get to be dimpled, skin tight jerseys.
Yeah, my full like the time trial helmet. And, yeah,
yeah. We'll lose the peak. The peak will be the first to go, man.
Yeah.
You know, but the peaks are interesting because a lot of time they are like, is it vestigial? Would that be the word? Like, you know, they used to be this big and they just now just smaller and smaller. It's like
people. There's a strong contingent of people that get so mad when the visor doesn't do things, and but I guess they live places where there's sun. Here, it doesn't really. It's more like a fashion thing.
I use the visor when it's raining really hard to keep my glasses dry, but that's just
like
me.
You actually move it.
Yeah, if it's like pissing rain and I'm alone, I'll drop it down. But
if you're alone, what? So no one sees you.
No, it's just like, because usually I'm riding alone. I don't know why I qualified with that, but like if I'm behind someone, I'm going to get splashed with their rear tire anyway. And so if it's like a drop the visor really low to commute to trails, and then I deal with it once I'm there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but you have your glasses to see. I just take my glasses off, I guess.
Yeah, these are important for my longevity.
Yeah.
I loved that Bluegrass do like a visor extender. I called the super visor.
Yeah. I think Fox Head makes
sick.
one too.
Yeah, you had one.
So
I remember. I think we were riding Whistler and it was wet, and you had your extender. It makes sense for that, for sure.
Honestly, it works so well. Like, especially when you can't have a mudguard in Whistler, you may as well put it on your helmet.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to fix that this year.
I think apparently they will. I've heard rumors.
Okay.
But then again, for the local meme pages for like Whistler Blower,
it
is such good meme fodder. They won't want it to go on.
No.
Right.
Hey, so let's get into some of our listeners' questions. We've got a couple of ones this week. I can't really remember what they were, so I'm just gonna play and we'll see what happens.
Where I live in Southern California, it seems like 80 to 90% of the riders only ride e-bikes. My question is, realistically, how many people still ride their enduro bike after they get an e-bike?
Okay, that was one hell of a pregnant pause.
That really was.
That was very pregnant. It's pregnant with like triplets, I think. Yeah.
It's weird. Do you think? I don't know. I know people that got e-bikes that still, and we, you know, you guys know test e-bikes and you still ride your regular bike. Do you think? Do you think that the industry has sort of changed forever and people are ever going to come back to regular bikes?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's almost like I can look, track my rides. So I can see which ones are on e-bikes and which ones are not. Like for me, it's still 30 or 40% are e-bikes and the rest are regular bikes. But I just wonder if that's because I have such a long history of riding regular bikes and love them and don't want them to go away. But if I had never really mountain biked before and bought an e-bike, I can see it I'd be less likely probably to go to a regular bike. It'd be interesting to see. And I do think there's also a honeymoon period. People get e-bike and they're like, oh, this is great. So at least for a couple of seasons, they're like, I'm an e-biker. But I do think some people can come back to it. And I hope people come back to it because you kind of need it in your life. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like e-biking all the time just doesn't, for me, it doesn't scratch that itch of like, well, there's a battery you have to worry about and just the experience is different, the speed and all that. So to answer this person's question, I don't really know. I know Southern California is kind of like the hotbed of people with souped up e-bikes. It's just kind of, they're dressed in very colorful kits. They have full face helmets, maybe a Bluetooth speaker. It just happens. Like that's a cliche, not even a cliche, like maybe a stereotype, but it actually is how it is down there. It's just kind of like what the scene's like, but it's not like that everywhere. So I don't really know what the future looks like for them. They're definitely companies that are still selling them and pushing them, but they're also still making regular bikes. So I don't know.
Do you think, to put it, because I think that North America is sort of, especially in various parts, but in like Squamish, I think we're further behind in terms of uptake of e-bikes than somewhere, like the UK or Europe. And actually saw a thing, there was actually in our Slack channel this week about the uptake of e-bikes in Germany is like, a very high threshold.
Yeah.
But do you think that we look at it from the wrong point of view, where we think about performance, we think about descending capability, we think about overall impression, not from a place where if you live 3 hours away from the trails and you could ride 1 day a week, the bike that you might buy would be an e-bike. So you can go there and just smash it out and then come home.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we're spoiled. Like I can go ride. I have a great, in 1 hour on a cross country bike, I can like knock out a super fun lunch lap, and I could do that on the e-bike too, but it's so easy with the regular bike. But yeah, if I had to drive somewhere and wanted to maximize. It's almost like having a chairlift that you're just driving around with the chairlift. And then fitness too, it does obviously help. So people that maybe don't have as much time to ride bikes, then just want to feel like they're getting a good, like exploring more. Like I see the appeal. I'd be curious. I think we did a poll a little bit ago, and the results were kind of mixed of like if you're still riding your e-bike all the time or if you've gone back to the regular bike. So I think it just depends.
Yeah. I will say for me, and at least the people that I tend to ride with, it feels like for me, I have to make myself ride the e-bike as like the dessert thing, or I'll like do it once a week as an intentional cycle. But I don't have too many buddies who've converted to e-bike fully. I think anyone who's tried one is like, that was cool, but most of them still prefer the pedal bike. I think it does seem like anyone I know who's bought an e-bike ends up just riding that. I think part of it is it's the newer bike that you have, like whatever new bike you just bought, you're most excited about. And if that's an e-bike, then you'll probably ride that more. I think that's part of the logic.
I think, and this is such a bad hot take that it is going to be, I might actually edit it out. It's that bad. I think that, I think as, how to put it? I'm trying to say this in the least problematic way possible.
Dig in.
I think the industry, this isn't a Pinkbike problem, this is across the board, media industry, has a strange relationship with e-biking. I think we need to service the argument because a lot of our readership will be interested, but also there's like an element of being held to ransom is the wrong word, but there's so much money in the industry. It means we have to take interest in it, whether we're interested in it or not.
I mean, because it's already like the wheels are already in motion to get them allowed in a lot of places where they don't exist. If you're a place that like people are coming up with management plans and how to handle it, because like the genie's out of the bottle or the Pandora's box has been opened or whatever phrase you want to use. But I think it does matter that you like if you're at a riding area, it has to have rules in place just to a certain class is only allowed, or there's directional trails and those type of things to make it so that the experience of everybody is good, because you don't want if you're on a regular bike, you don't want it to be ruined by an e-bike, and if you're on an e-bike, you don't want your ride to be ruined either. So I think just I don't know, kind of everyone chill out a little bit and kind of figure it out, because they're here and there's no signs of like the development slowing down, and batteries are getting bigger and motors are getting more powerful and all that. I don't know. Like if e-bikes just went away tomorrow and someone's like, no more e-bikes or anywhere, I'd be like, all right, fine. That was a fun little time, but like these regular bikes are great and I'll just happily ride them forever. So I don't know. I'm kind of not like a, we call it like e-bike acolyte. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Or, something like I'm not pushing the e-bikes hard, but they are interesting. Like it's interesting to see where they're going. And for me, like I don't know if I had any shuttle days last year. Like I definitely rode chairlifts, but I think I had one. I did one day of shuttling, but all my other days that would have kind of been like that were on an e-bike. So for me, they've kind of become that replacement, which is kind of nice.
So. But do you think, looking at what's happened in enduro and the EEWS, etc., I think the industry is like untapped market. And I think that there's lobbying would be the wrong word because it's not that sophisticated, but something like lobbying to get e-bikes seem like the logical step for everyone. But it's just consumerism.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not sure, buying another 15 grand bike is a good thing. And they say, but it's actually like, they always make it out like,
it's like the
e-biking,
better,
man, it's just so good for everyone. But it's like, it's a big fucking battery. It's $15,000 and it basically is a load of nonsense. In my opinion,
and I think we've seen that tone down a little bit, but that's one of the things that rubbed me the wrong way initially when e-bikes kind of first started making the big push into the, the mainstream mountain bike world. It was just like, you're never going to ride your regular bike again. Like, this is all you're going to do. And it's like, I don't believe
that rubbed me the wrong way too.
It seems like they've toned that down a little bit, which I like in my ideal world, if you're a very spoiled person, like many of us are able to have more than one bike. If you had an e-bike and a regular bike, like that makes a ton of sense. Like it's once in a while you go on one, but like, obviously that's like at the highest level of spoiledness and income and free time. So it's,
Do you want to hit my sort of theory on that though, is why the industry pushed them so hard. Another element is I think there are a lot of people in the industry who absolutely shred, who end up during COVID getting less and less free time because they were working crazy hours. And then they became more reliant on e-bikes to have a really good time on a bike because they could only ride once a week. And then they were sort of it was for them as well, like a sort of come to Jesus moment of like, oh, and now like I know so many product managers that were fucking nuts for e-bikes just because they're working 60-hour week and they and they still have all the same family commitments and yada yada yada. And
I mean,
they were like became angelic,
evangelizing it.
But,
yeah. I mean, the first wave of mountain biking. I mean, mountain biking basically started in the late 70s. So those people now that's invented mountain biking, basically, they're in their 70s, late 60s to like to 80s. So those are people that e-bike makes a lot of sense. So you have like the first wave of developers. I can see why they'd be like, this is the best. Like you see Gary Fisher out there. He's got his own little e-bike project going on, and those. So I can see that, and I'm curious to see where it goes and how it splits. It'd be nice if it just kind of like didn't cause too much disruption, but there's obviously issues that arise. But everyone just be nice. Well, hey, that's the thing. Just be nice to people. Don't be a jerk.
That is, like the best lobbying there could be for e-biking is everyone being friendly to each other.
Yeah, like just don't shame someone on an e-bike.
Rip past someone without saying hi. Don't be a dick to someone on an e-bike. It goes both ways, but just be friendly.
It goes both ways. Yeah. I think that's such a good thing. Like, because I know we spoke about it before, but I think some people are embarrassed to ride e-bikes and they really shouldn't be, because we're all just it's all nonsense. It's all just a pleasure pursuit, and just we're all in it together.
Yeah, just be polite. My thing now, if I'm coming up on someone, I'm on an e-bike and they're on a regular bike, I just turn the e-bike off and I see if I can pass them with the motor on, and that way I feel better about it. It probably doesn't make them feel better about it, but I'm like, look, I just turned it off. So like, I would have passed you anyway, so you can't cause a stir about me passing you.
Halfway up a long climb, you come up on them at 20 and then sprint past them.
Yeah. That's my.
Hey, well, that's a novel take. Novel take. Let's get on to the next question.
Hey guys, I tried to come up with a really short version of this question. So same bike, same travel fork, same damper. How would you compare the ride feel on a normal sort of trail ride between, say, a 36 and a 38 with a Grip 2, or a Lyric and a Zeb with a Charger 3? I have a Canyon Neuron that's a 140 Grip 2 36 and a Transition Sentinel that's adjusted a degree steeper with a 160 Grip 2 38. Same handlebars, and they feel really different, especially on the top end. And I'm curious what your experience has been and what explanations for that might be, other than stiffness, I guess. I'm also a nightmare at the eye doctor with the better one, better two thing, so maybe
Me too.
Thanks.
Oh, man. I actually am avoiding going to the eye doctor right now because I know how annoying that process is of one or two. And even though my prescription is definitely out of date.
You should go to the eye doctor, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna set up some appointments for you, Dario.
This shit. I think that the stiffness is an apparent difference and ideally should match the chassis of the bike that you have it on. Like I have bikes that I've run 36s and 38s on and find one suits it better than the other. Like for instance, the Frameworks Enduro bike that I've got is a 38 bike. The Stump Jumper is a 36 bike and feels a little weird when you have a 38 on it. On the Airspring side, I think the 38 has a better top end feel than the 36, and that
what do you mean by top end feel? Just could you clarify?
It enters travel a little more readily. I think RockShox has a more consistent feel between the two currently in terms of like how the sensation is similar between Lyric and Zeb in terms of like what the Airspring feels like and how the damper performs. I think 38 versus 36 is a bit more like the 38 feels more descending focused currently. 36 is a bit more, I don't know. It doesn't feel quite as
it's like a little
traction rich.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Did he say if they're the same travel? He's running.
No, he said because the Neuron's a 140 front. His Sentinel would probably be 160.
Right. Yeah. So I mean,
which is interesting.
Yeah,
because he's going to a 160 is normally suitable for the 36.
Yeah,
and 170, 180 to 38 domain, right?
Yeah, you can get 36 up to 160, though I also have I have a 38 lowered to 160.
But you know what I mean? It's interesting that it's not the 34 and the 36 we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, he has a 36. It's like a shorter, but he could be a bigger guy. But Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a couple of different, I think, like you said, Dario, the different air spring, and then also just the travel amounts too. The way the whole bike is going to handle, like how much travel you're using and where you're sitting in that is going to feel different. You know, even if there's the same exact fork, it would still feel a little bit different, just the way that the air spring would work in it at different travel settings. So I think that's what you're running into.
Yeah. I think to Dario's point, like, I've actually got a video coming out, I think this week about it. It might even be out as we speak, basically about how going to a bigger fork diameter, leg diameter, isn't only about stiffness. I think stiffness is the easiest thing to market and to understand, but actually it's a huge thing is being able to make a more sophisticated air spring.
Correct. You have more packaging space. Yeah.
Just real estate, which isn't as exciting, especially oh my god, I'm going to ride enduro and it's going to be amazing and it's going to be in a big fork, yada yada yada. But actually, I don't know. I don't really notice that much stiffness difference.
Yeah, like, initially when they first came out, I did back to back just to see, and you can tell in certain times, but it's not. I don't have as much. There are people I've seen that just say like the Zeb or the 38 is way too stiff. It's horrible. Like I've never had that experience, but
no, it just can feel imbalanced with some bikes, I think is my thing. But that might be more like placebo than it is reality.
Yeah, I've never felt that really, but I've also never put it on a bike that didn't really deserve it.
I have definitely put it on bikes that did not deserve it. That's kind of
like I'm not going to put a 38 on the Epic or something. But Dario might be out there with his Mavens and his 38 on the Epic.
I could do it.
Yeah,
you can lower the Olin's 38 to I think 120 or 130 mil travel. So
that might start feeling stiff. We're be a stiff fork.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of little things that add up to big differences between 36 and 38. And then, as I mentioned, I think Lyric and Zeb are a bit more analogous in some ways.
Cool. I hope that answered your question. I think it did. I'm gonna hit the next question.
Hi, this is Peter, currently living in New Hampshire. I'm only 24. I've owned a number of mountain bikes, but I have yet to buy a new bike. Every time I went to get a bike that's new to me, I've gone into the used market, whether it be on the buy, sell, Facebook Marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. And I have always advised people to do the same because it seems to me that bikes depreciate so quickly. I just have a really hard time justifying paying full price for something that I'm going to ride down a mountain and is going to get beat up when I fall. I was just wondering your thoughts on this. From what I can see, like in my area, you can get a bike that's sort of brand new entry-level hardtail for about $1,500 US. For the same price, you can get a middle-of-the-road full suspension bike that's 2 or 3 years old, or a top-end full suspension bike that's like 5 years old. And I was wondering, obviously this all depends on the budget, but if you had a budget of roughly $1,500 US, where would you guys sit? Do you think it's advisable to buy used bikes and then just replace components over time? Or would you recommend saving up to get a brand new mountain bike? Let me know. Thanks, guys.
I think this is a really good question. I think the way I think about it is, if we compare it to cars, if you're someone that rides all the time, like say that drives a lot, and you're going to have a car, like I've got a friend that's going through this at the moment. He bought a Giant Rain in 2018 from new, and he's ridden it for the entire warranty period, and now he's going to move it on. And there are people that do that with cars, right? You drive all your warranty miles, and if you drive it every day and you look after it, then you're kind of sorted. Similarly, if you're someone that wants to get a new car every 2-3 years, or kind of change to various situations, the depreciation is a massive hit, but it gets worse the longer you hang on to it.
Yeah.
There's no point buying a brand new bike every 2 years, but if you keep one for 5 or 6 years, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I've never bought a new bike, so I think I'd go used. Yeah.
Well, I never paid full price though, so that should qualify that.
That's what I mean. I only got into the bike industry because I couldn't afford a bike.
Same. Yeah.
Once I worked in bike shops.
Shop deals.
No one tells you that how little you get paid though.
It balances out nicely.
Yeah, it balances out.
Paying you in spokes. But I think it depends on your budget a lot. Like obviously $1,500 for sure used. Like that's not going to get you a very fancy full suspension new bike. But yeah, like you said, a couple years old or 3 or 4 years old, $1,500 is definitely used territory. But for people with a little bit more disposable income, I think, and you ride a lot, I think a new bike can be nice. And just because it's you that's putting all those miles on it. You know what happened. You don't have to worry about things like bearings wearing out or, rebuilding the fork or the shock or all that little things that can happen with if a bike's been ridden hard. So used bikes are definitely the way to save money. But if you, like Henry said, if you're going to buy a bike and hang on to it for a handful of years, like I would actually suggest new in that instance.
Yeah, I'm looking at buy sell in town right now, and there are like over a dozen bikes that I would happily ride for the rest of the year for less than $3,000, and like that is a pretty good deal.
Especially now, like the used market is good right now.
It's
like
crazy right now.
It's not a good seller's market, but buyer's market. You can get a lot of people that people bought bikes during COVID thinking they were going to ride all the time. Like, actually, mountain biking's hard. I don't like this, and now it's for sale for a good price. So, used it's definitely worth looking at.
Sorry to speak over you there, Kaz, but no, I think also there's elements of like how to put it. If you get a bike there are some bikes that when they come out, say they were for a 4-year span, they're cutting edge. If you get a bike that came out in 2015, in 2019, and it got a massive overhaul in 2020. So they were, do you know what I mean? They're sort of different years of how progressive a bike might be. Like,
for sure,
I still ride my 2021 bike all the time, and I absolutely love it, and that's absolutely fine. But there were other bikes in 2021 that were actually released in 2016, and their angles weren't so progressive. So that's maybe a small caveat, is like researching and understanding like when they got released might help you get a better value for longer.
Yeah, I always look at like the Apple iPhone analogy with this, where Apple's going to release a new iPhone every year. Usually those updates are bullshit, but every 4 or 5 years, there's like something fundamentally different and worthwhile. I think the bike industry is a little more immune to that, but there are still some companies that do a consistent model year update every year. And usually it's not like something game changing. It's component updates or maybe slight geometry tweaks, but wait for those big things. And then maybe if a generation old is still okay, then go for that.
Yeah, totally. On to the next question.
Hey, Pinkbike, this is Drew from Colorado. I am wondering if you guys ever think about 27.5 bikes, like full 27.5 bikes. I recently saw actually 2 different videos on YouTube, people comparing the new Bronson to the old full 27.5 Bronson from like 7 years ago. It's pretty interesting. It inspired me to get my old 27.5 trail bike out and give it a rip. I am 5'8", so the 29er. I've ridden mullets in full 29s and full 27.5, and I like them all. But I wonder, if you guys see them around there in the Pacific Northwest. There's not a ton of them out here in Colorado still ripping around, but just curious. Thanks for the show.
Dario, you probably had the most experience riding 27.5 bikes recently. You had that Yeti, I think. Did you ride the Pivot? Was that you?
No, the last full 27.5 bike I had was that Yeti SB 135. That was sick. I had a great time on that. I like having a big wheel up front for some stuff, but for like a do-it-all trail bike, I'd happily run full 27.5.
It doesn't really make that much difference, really. If it's, a good time on a bike's a good time on a bike.
And I think that's kind of why they faded away. They sort of realized like we could just use most of these 29er wheels and we'll do some mixed wheel stuff and maybe have a 27.5 for the smaller riders. I think at 5'8", like the shorter riders, even more in the like let's say 5'4" and below. I think that's where dual 27.5 works really well. Just it's even more clearance.
But do you not think that with the mixed wheeled thing, the racers' need outstripped the consumer's demand? And what I mean by that is there are so many people on bad full 27.5 geometry bikes. Geometry was changing massively, and they were like, holy shit, if we put 29 in the front of this, we're going to at least have a head angle that's south of 65.
Yeah.
And then it made an argument the consumer didn't necessarily, you know what I mean? What they could have done is actually made 27.5 bikes with better angles for the next generation. Instead, we got mixed wheel bikes in the next generation.
But then you might as well have the roll.
Anyway.
Yeah. You just might. I think the argument is you might as well have the rollover of that 29-inch wheel in the front.
No,
but like
I agree. But I
think that helps for sure.
People compare bad geometry compared to good geometry is the fundamental change.
Yeah. I think the other element of that too is you get, for me at least, I get better stack height on a 29er front wheel bike because you get a taller wheel, a taller fork, and as a result, a much higher stack. If you carry that like relative stack to bottom bracket drop through to a full 27.5 bike, I'd probably still be happy. But I think inherently you can get a higher front end on a 29er, and that's typically something I prefer. So I think that's part of the equation there.
Yeah, same. But yeah, if we were talking about used bikes before, you can get full 27.5 bikes used for a pretty good price, and there are some fun ones for sure.
For sure.
The Bronson that's a couple gens back that he's talking about, it's a great bike. So yeah, nothing against them. We're just not seeing any release for kind of the reasons we discussed. But yeah, if you have one and like it, keep riding it. They're fun.
Yeah, and to like answer the question about whether we see them or not, like for sure you see them all around. I'd say less and less as time goes on, but I still see people. I have homies I ride with who ride full 27.5 bikes.
Yeah, so. Transition Scout was really popular around here, so you still see those rocking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think I think it's sort of, I don't know, I think like we're saying, good geometry is good geometry and a good bike's a good bike. Yeah. It's not to get too much hung up on. Although I think it is cool, like, what Santa Cruz is sort of doing, which we criticize on one end, saying like, wouldn't it be great if this had a flip chip, say, for the Bronson to make it to go between the high tower and stuff. Yeah. But it does give it an interesting lineage that you can kind of trace back. Like, this has always been the Bronson, I think
that's part of why they do it, is they don't want to like remove any of those timelines from the lineup. And I get that. It's kind of a cool thing to see evolution.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, that's all the questions answered. A good amount of shit talking. Only a small tangent about e-bikes. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Thank you very much for listening to the Pinkbike podcast. Please get your questions in via the homepage, and we will see you next week.
Bye.